We're going to be talking about the law of cosines, and you know you're going to use the law of cosines when you have side, angle, side. When you're given a side, then an angle, then a side of a triangle. And I want to talk about why the law of sines doesn't work. So this example says solve the triangle labeled below. Here we have a 10. This is 10 right here. This angle is 25 degrees. The other side is 15. Well, you can't use the law of sines because you're not given the angle opposite, you're not given the side opposite 25 degrees. Okay, you have to have the side opposite the angle they give you to use law of sines. So when you're given side, angle, side, you have to use the law of cosines. Now, fortunately, basically it's just plugging it into a calculator and figuring out what the answer is. So here we go. Step 1, label the triangle. All right, so we're going to label the angle that we're given A, big A. Okay. We're going to be labeling the other two, the smaller side, little b. So make sure you label the smaller side 10, little b, and the larger side, little c. You're going to see why in just a second. Okay, so the angle we're given, big A, the smaller side, little b, the bigger side, little c. Next, step 2, we're going to determine the known values. So there we go. Big A is 25, little b is 10, little c is 15. Again, little c should be your bigger side. C comes later in the alphabet, right? Step 3, write out the formula. Here's the formula for law of cosines. It goes like this. Little a equals the square root of little b squared plus little c squared minus 2bc cosine of big A. Now, we can solve for little a because we know little b, we know little c, and we know big A. So we're just going to we're going to plug in that stuff that we know, little b for b, little c for c, and 25 degrees for cosine, for big A. Okay, and again, we need to put parentheses around this. We will do so in our calculator. All right, so that's what happens when we plug it in. We will solve for little a. We will get this, and I'll show you how to plug this into your calculator. So give me 1 second, and I will bring that up. So the first thing we need is the square root. So I'm just going to hit the square root button down here. And it's going to be, let's see, what do we got here? 10 squared plus 15 squared. Oh, I did something weird with my calculator. If I can stretch this back out. Give me 1 second. Okay, so we got, went outside the zone. Okay, 10 squared plus 15 squared. Pretty straightforward, right? Okay, next we have minus 2 times 10 times 15. Easy, make sure you stay within the square root. Minus 2 times 10 times 15. And next I'm just going to do times cosine. Now make sure your calculator is in degrees. All right, times cosine of 25. There we get 7.28. If we round to the third decimal, it would be 8. 7.288. All right, just how we get there. So again, it's pretty much just straightforward. Just make sure everything is under the radical like we did right there. Okay, now that's little a, right? That's this side right here. Now that we know little a, it's actually easier to use the law of sines to solve for big B and also for big C. Okay, so we know all three sides now. We have to solve for the other two angles. Now keep in mind that we can store this little a in our calculators. So we'll go over here and we'll say, there's a little alphabet here, little a is equal to this. So every time I type in little a now, it's going to store all the information, all those decimal places. Okay, so we will be using this little a to solve for big B. Now notice, to solve we have little a over sine of a equals little b over sine of big B. Okay, so again, little a over sine of a equals little b over sine of big B. I'm not sure why I didn't label my triangle that way, but this is going to be my big B over here. And over here, this is going to be my big C. So these are the two things we still have to solve for. So little a over sine of A equals little b over sine of big B. So I'm going to plug this into my calculator. I want to make sure and type in just little a that we stored over sine of 25 equals 10 over sine of b. We will then cross multiply this, so we will get little a times sine of b equals 10 times sine of 25. Next, we will divide both sides by our little a and take the inverse of both sides to get big B by itself. So we will type in sine inverse of 10 times sine of 25 over little a to give our big B. Okay, so let's go to sine inverse. Right, and then next we have what? 10 times sine of 25. Again, make sure your calculator's in degrees. Now, because we've stored our little a, we can just go ahead and type that in. We get 35.445. Now, I did some rounding earlier, so I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to put the correct decimal in there, which is 5. Okay? That's what happens when you round, right? So, but because I stored my little a there, that made it a little bit more accurate of a decimal place for my big B. Okay? So, actually, when I go in here, I can store my big B as such. Okay? And that way, when I go to solve for C, I can just do 180 minus my other two angles. Okay? So that leads us to this. Big C now we can solve for because we know big B. Big C will just be 180 minus 25 minus big B. Okay. Okay, so again, I'm actually going to change this to a 5 now that I've done this more accurately. So it'll be 180 minus 25 minus 35.445. Make sure I change that again. So I'm going to plug this into my calculator. Obviously, I'm going to get a different decimal place here. So I'm just going to do 180 minus 25 minus my big B that I just stored. And I get 119.55. It's going to round to a 5, right? The last one. Now it's not repeating, but it will round to that. And now that I have my big C and my big B, I can label my triangle here. Alright, and here's my final triangle with law of cosines. You should just have one answer. Big C, 119.555. Little c, 15. This is our biggest angle, so the biggest side should be opposite that, and that is the case. Our next biggest angle is 35.445, which is big B. We can see opposite that is our next smallest side. And then finally, our smallest angle is 25, big A. Opposite that should be our smallest side, which is 7.288. So that's one way of checking your work. Alright, that's it for law of cosines, side angle side. If you have any other questions about this example, let me know.